When I was born, I was born at 29 weeks. Back then, it was almost unheard of to be born that early, and I had a real challenge ahead of me. Both my mother and father suffer from mental illness, and my mother thought she was impregnated by the devil when she was pregnant with me. So she tried to self-abort me twice and eventually started starving herself so I would come early. And when I was born, she didn't want anything to do with me. She didn't want to touch me or anything. And she was put into a rehabilitation center for her mental illness. Luckily, my aunt was able to help me. Unfortunately, she had a baby 2 days before I was born, and her baby didn't live. So she took me on and breastfed me and took care of me for the 10 months that I was in the NICU. Eventually, I went home with my mom, and she was accepting of me. But growing up, she was very abusive. She had bipolar disorder, and she would, for instance, I was in beauty pageants when I was little. If I won, she would tell me it's because I was a dirty whore. If I didn't win, it was because I was fat and ugly. So from the age of like 2 years old, I was in these pageants, and she was always like abusing me. When I was 8 years old, she had another breakdown, and she tried to drown me in the bathtub. My brother was luckily there, my older brother, who's 4 years older than me, and he hit her and pushed her away from me so I could get out. My family made the decision to send me to boarding school because our family was well off and we didn't have to. It's a lot different when you're well off in the system. You know, child services doesn't get called, things are brushed under the rug, and that's kind of what they did with my mom. So I went to boarding school in England, and I was there for 6 years, and I came back home. I went back to live with my parents again. My dad started abusing me sexually, and he did so for about 3 years till I was 16. My mother knew about it, but she said, "What can I do? He's the breadwinner in the family. I need him, and I don't need you." So it continued, and I spent a lot of nights at my grandparents' house and my aunt's house. I finally broke away when I went away to college, and I thought everything was going to be okay. I went to college in upstate New York at Cornell University. I ran track and field. I was a distance runner and big distances. I did ultra marathons. I loved running. It was a way to work out all my anger and frustration. When I was um, at school, a man kidnapped me and took me to what appeared to be a basement or like a shed. And when I woke up, I was naked and I was strapped down. For the next like 6 days, he raped and tortured me. He broke 42 bones in my body. I had traumatic brain injury. Um, he did things that were unimaginable. Um, he raped me with a knife and tore out part of my uterus. Um, he put an ice pick in my eye and did like a lobotomy on me. Um, he wore a mask for when he first saw me, and then he took off his mask, and I thought, oh no, this means he's probably going to kill me. And he said, "I'm going to kill you. At some point, I'm going to kill you when I'm done with you." He eventually put a bag over my head. I passed out, and apparently it was heavy enough that he thought I was dead. So he took my body and dumped my naked body, in a cornfield. When I woke up, he was nowhere around. Um, I had a gouged eye, I had all those broken bones. I couldn't stand or crawl. I had to lay on my belly and pull myself to what I heard was the nearest road, and I collapsed once I got to the road. A trucker stopped and picked me up, and he said he'd seen nothing like it. He thought I'd been hit by a semi because of how bad shape I was in. I was in a coma for 95 days. Um, and when I finally came out of it, I had a lot of memory loss. I didn't remember a lot about what he had done to me. And they had no leads on him. I went back home to recover, and while I was recovering, they had told me they gave me the morning after pill when I had first come in because I was sexually assaulted. There used to be a rule that if someone was unconscious, a doctor could make the decision or the family could make the decision to give them the morning after pill if they had been sexually assaulted. I had had 3 surgeries on my uterus to reconstruct it. Much to everyone's amazement, at 14 weeks, I found out I was pregnant. They had been in there, like I said, 3 times to do a reconstructive surgery, and the doctor's like, I don't know how this is possible. You've been on the morning after pill and you've had this. He said, I don't believe in miracles, but I would say this is a miracle.
In the middle of everything you were going through, did you feel God's presence?
I did. I remember especially being in there, every chance I got, I prayed. And I felt like he was leading me certain directions, like, don't do this, don't make him angry. Try to talk to him like a person so he sees you as a person.
Your kidnapper.
Yes. So I felt like God was guiding me. I was still really struggling with it because of everything that had happened. I'm like, God, why would you make this happen to me? Why would you allow this to happen? So I still had that. But through most of my life, since I was a kid, I looked to God for his direction, and I thought, it's going to get better. It will always get better. And especially when my baby came, for me, that was right there showing me that God was real, that he made something beautiful out of something so horrible and ugly. And I decided to keep my baby. I didn't know if I was going to keep her or put her up for adoption, but I definitely wanted to carry. Unfortunately, the doctors said it was a high-risk pregnancy. If I went ahead with the pregnancy, I probably would never have children. But I did anyway, and she was stillborn at 32 weeks. That, out of everything that happened, that was probably the hardest thing for me because I put a lot of my hope and a lot of my healing into her, that she was going to be this culmination of everything positive that could come out of this. And when she was stillborn, that's when I really got angry with God and was like, I can't do this right now with you, God. I went through 49 hours of labor because I kept refusing to believe that she was gone. And so I wouldn't push, I wouldn't comply with the doctors. And finally, we did take it. Her name was Hope Marie. She has her own little grave spot in the cemetery. I go there every year. She was born on February 14th.
In the middle of all that pain, what kinds of things did you turn to in order to cope?
It was difficult. I actually did a 180 and I started being very promiscuous. I dropped out of college. I started working at a strip club. I didn't strip, but I did wait tables. And I worked at Hooters, and I just kind of led a life. I was doing fetish modeling. I led a life of just like, I didn't care. I felt like I'm useless. My body's been used and abused. There's nothing left. A lot of women who go through sexual assault act out like that. In fact, they say most of the strippers in the strip clubs are victims of sexual abuse. It's just a way where you just don't feel worthy anymore and you feel like used. And it's like, well, might as well use it up. I did start having dreams about God, and so I came back to church. I gave up that lifestyle and I went back to school and finished my degree. And at the same time, I was in the Catholic Church. That's what I grew up in. I had decided that I wanted to become a Roman Catholic nun. And I was in the formation to do that when I got into a terrible accident and broke my back in 3 places. I got hit by a drunk driver. They found out that I had multiple sclerosis. None said, unfortunately, that I wouldn't be able to be a nun because of the MS. It would be like a liability because they have to have insurance and stuff. And most people end up handicapped from it. that kind of ended that, and I started looking at other churches. I got into non-denominational church and did that for about 12 years. And then I started feeling called back to the Catholic Church, and I met my fiance at the Byzantine Catholic Church, and he wanted to be a Byzantine priest. Well, Byzantine priests are allowed to get married. So we talked about it, and he was like my soulmate, and we decided to um, get married. Unfortunately, he had some bad advice, and he decided to become a Roman Catholic monk, which they can't get married. So we broke up our engagement, and I was really, again, angry at God, really angry. I got into Wicca. I started experimenting with that.
During that time, did you truly know Jesus, or was it more that you were choosing to turn away from him?
I did. I did. It was just a rejection. The breakup was like I was angry, and I thought I didn't have any control over it. And Wiccan's all about you control everything. You can control your environment and that. None of the devil worship stuff. It was more earth spirits and stuff like that.
Given what you knew about Jesus, how did that season affect you emotionally?
I felt guilty. Yeah, definitely felt guilty at times. I'd be doing like trying to do a spell or something, and I just remember feeling guilty, like maybe I shouldn't be doing this, you know. Um, but I did it anyway. So,
Roughly, how long were you practicing Wicca?
like 3 years
Wow.
when I was uh, doing Wicca. I was taking care of an elderly lady and doing all her billing and stuff like that. I was working for her. And I was supposed to be a co-signer on her account, and we went into the bank and did that. And it turned out that the forms we signed were not the right forms. Well, she passed away, and she said, whatever's left in my checking account, make sure it goes to these charities. So she passed away. I gave the money to the charities, and her daughter, who had a drug problem, came around and wanted the money. And I'm like, well, I was a co-signer in your mom's account. I donated the money. That's what she wanted. Her daughter had in a trust $2 million, and this was just the checking account money. There was like 150, I think, was in her checking account. So her daughter got the trust for $2 million, but she still wanted that 150,000. So she pursued suing me, and then criminal. She sued me. She did not win. It was a lawsuit against me and the bank. The bank admitted fault and took responsibility and gave her the 150,000. So I was clear from that. Criminal court, I go into, which they told me, don't worry about it. You don't have a record. You've never done anything wrong. You're going to be fine. So I go in there on sentencing day because my lawyer told me take a plea deal, because if you don't, they have 12 felonies against you. So every transaction I made at the bank was illegal. And so that's why I was in trouble. So we went to sentencing. They gave me 3 to 4.5 years in state prison. As much as it really sucked to be in prison, at the same time, it saved my life. My life was spinning out of control. I was doing Wicca. I was drinking very heavily. A few weeks before I went into prison, I decided I was going to take my life. So I drank 3 bottles of wine. I took pills, and then I was going to crash my car because I didn't want my parents to have to deal with a car payment. I got in my car. I hit 2 cars going to the highway, and it was a hit and run. So I got in trouble for that. Then I got on the highway, and I was about Middleburg Heights, and I floored it to 90, and I turned my car and went straight into the median. I had scratches and bruises, and that's what was it. Have no idea how I survived that, but only God, only God. I had to go to county first for a week, and they had me at suicide watch because I still wasn't doing mentally well. And I also am bipolar. They took me off all my meds while I was in county, and I went crazy. It was terrible. I went through horrific withdrawal. I was seeing things and hearing things, and they had me locked in a cell like 24 hours a day. I then got transferred to Marysville and was there for a year. That's when I started to come around. People would invite me to church and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. And then I was like, all right, I'll go. Participated in the Catholic stuff, participated in the non-denominational stuff, whatever I could participate in, I did it. And after a year, I was transferred over to Northeast Reintegration Center in Cleveland, which was a lot better than Marysville. We had like semi-private rooms. There's only 4 people in a room instead of sharing a dorm with 120 women. Again, I participated in everything religious I could do, and I read every religious book I could get my hands on. Through that, my relationship with Christ just grew and grew and grew.
Can you take us back to the moment when surrender to Jesus became real for you?
Yeah, I would say it was when I was going through withdrawal, and I was in that little prison cell in county. 4 walls. The door was a wall with a little window in it. And I just remember being at my wit's end and like crying out to God and being like, please help me, please save me. Because I was seeing demons and all kinds of things. And it just stopped. And like a day later, they took me out and sent me to Marysville. When I got to Marysville, I was in the hospital for a month. They got me back on my meds and got me worked out, and it was a lot better. And then, of course, when I went to Northeast, it was even better. But I worked as a tutor. I did college tutoring because I have 2 master's degrees. Now that I'm home, I moved back in with my parents because I didn't have anywhere to go, and also because my dad's 83, my mom's 79. My mom has dementia, and my dad had 3 strokes while I was in prison. So they needed my help. And even though we went through all that stuff, they're still my parents. I forgive them.
How difficult was it for you to forgive your parents?
It was hard at first. It was a lot of anger. And I still have some anger towards my dad. And I have to just tell myself, stop, just let it go. Because it doesn't do anything but hurt you. When you have anger like that, it's not hurting the other person, you're hurting yourself.
Have you been able to forgive your kidnapper?
Yes. Yes, I went through extensive therapy for that because I was still considered victims of violent crime. I went through that. I went through rape crisis, and I pray for him. While I was in prison, the detectives from New York, there was a new detective on the case. It's been a cold case for a while, and they have found that there are at least 12 other murders of young girls in a 100-mile radius with similar MOs. So they think this guy has been for a while doing this. They think it's the same guy who got me. Unfortunately, like I said, I never got justice for it. And it was kind of crazy how I didn't get justice for mine, but I ended up in prison for something I really didn't do, or didn't mean to do anyway. And yeah, he's still out there. In the beginning, every time I went to my car at night, or every time I wouldn't run at night anymore, anytime I went anywhere, I was always like, is he going to be there? Is he going to jump out at me? And that's always in the back of my head.
You mentioned that 12 other girls lost their lives to the man police believe kidnapped and tortured you. Why do you believe God spared your life?
I think he has a plan for my life.
I know God has a plan for your life.
Yeah. I think I'm meant to help other people through similar situations, which I've done. I know with Right to Life, I'm a really big advocate for Right to Life. There's been some full circle things that have happened. I went to the National Right to Life conference in Washington, D.C., and gave a talk there about my experience. And we always have naysayers and protesters from the pro-choice movement. And the one guy was really getting upset and was near the stage and kept yelling at me, you deserve to be raped. You deserve to be raped over and over again. You know, you're a Nazi, all this stuff. And I got down when I was done with my talk, and he came up to me and punched me in the face, and he broke my nose. And everybody at Right to Life was like, we're going to press charges, all this stuff, all this stuff. And I just had this moment of God saying, no, this is not how this is going to go. And I said, can you give me a minute? I said, I told him, I said, listen, I won't press charges if you'll sit down with me and just talk for a couple hours. So he said, yeah, whatever. So we ended up talking, and his heart ended up softening. And by the end, he was crying. And we exchanged information and talked over the phone and stuff. And he ended up becoming a Christian and ended up becoming a pro-life advocate.
Wow, this is incredible. This is what the supernatural love of Christ can do. It melts even the hardest hearts.
Exactly.
You had
Yeah.
every right to press charges, but the voice of the Holy Spirit was louder than the voices around you. He led you to handle it his way. And through your obedience, God used you to reach him for Christ. That is amazing.
And there's another story I like to tell. There was a girl, what they would do with me is like girls who had been sexually assaulted and got pregnant, they would have me talk to them. I got trained to do that. And a girl called in and she didn't know what to do. She got gang raped and got pregnant. Her parents didn't want her to have the baby. But even though she wasn't a Christian, she said, I kind of feel like I want the baby. So we ended up talking. She said her parents wouldn't take her back in and ended up sending her to Texas. She stayed, there's a group of nuns down there that run a house for women who have pregnancies like from sexual assault and stuff like that and have nowhere to go. And she ended up having her daughter and keeping her. Her name was Scarlett. We stayed in touch when she came back home, and she ended up going to the same church as me. And she met her fiance there with her little girl. And that little girl has never known him other than daddy. And they got married, and I was the maid of honor in their wedding. And now they have 6 kids.
Is there a specific scripture you lean on when you're walking through hard seasons?
Yes, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and give you a future.
Oh, yeah. That's my favorite verse, too.
Mine too.
Could you pray for those who have experienced trauma and because of that trauma have turned their hearts away from God? And could you pray that they would open their hearts to the Holy Spirit's voice so they can experience the love of Christ?
Sure. Dear Lord, I ask that you please bring the people that are seeing this back to the Lord. Let them feel his love like I felt his love, like I know his love, and help them to know that even though the things can be difficult, be crazy, can be downright just some of the most awful things can happen, that there's a purpose God has for you and for it. As long as you follow him and you continue to serve him, he'll lead you in the right direction. So I just pray that everyone listening to this today feels in their heart God's love and turns towards God. In Jesus' name I pray.